Yeah.
And we're live.
You're live. All right. Yo, what's up, DevTips? It's your boy Trav. We got a full house today. We got, Max. We got the Shy Crush. We got the Ghost Park. We got the Grover, the Houndstooth up here. Yes. And then to to my left here, we got the Jaster. We got the 583. We got the Delilah to my hey there. This is Jaina, my beloved. And we got a special guest up at the top here. We got the trucker hat aficionado. We got the captain both in yes. We got the surf daddy himself. This is Sam. Sam Frentzel-Beyme.
Yes. What's up, folks?
Hey.
Hi.
So what were we talking about just a second ago? We were talking about Max. We were looking at your website, which can you guys hear
actually,
an
I was
echo?
telling Sam, he was asking if how long I have been working with DevTips.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I was letting him know that only recently, since it restarted.
Yeah, we've had how many
So, I don't know,
episodes
a
now?
couple
Like
months now, maybe.
4 or 5 episodes, like including
Yeah.
live. I think this is like the 3rd live stream, and we did 2 or 3 episodes before that.
Yeah. I will say someone's echoing. I think it's you, Travis. Do you have
Is
audio
it-
coming out of speaker?
It might be because we're so close together.
Am I coming through on your microphone, sweetie?
Maybe.
Okay, I'll be like
She's
this
not.
now.
She's not echoing though.
Oh,
No,
okay.
no, but I think I'm shouting and coming through on her. So
That
is
was
this
happening.
is this
I'm a little
better?
more quiet.
Okay.
Okay, I'll turn up my gain. I'll be quieter. Okay, is that good?
Dude,
Is that
Valera,
sounding
what's
good?
up?
Just do ASMR
Griff
voice.
HQ.
Yeah.
Salim is back. Nice.
Hey everybody. Welcome back
Hi,
to my
Dave.
ASMR channel. I just want to say before we get started, thanks for tuning in. Yo, Dave Lira's here, and we also got Salim. Beep, 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 DevTips. Okay. So this is exciting because in our live stream edition of DevTips, this is the first time we've had a huge cast like this. So we got 4 people in the room, and that includes our special guest, Sam. And so, Sam, I just want to throw it out to you a little bit and just say, is this the right? Am I pointing at Sam?
No,
You're pointing at
it's
Max.
good.
Yeah.
The other way. You did it the other way.
There you go.
One more
Yeah.
over. Just the opposite corner, and then you'd have me.
It's not on my camera. I'm definitely pointing at Sam. So this
That's
is funny. I
funny.
wonder the broadcast is like
If I was
flipped or
pointing
something.
at you, you're right
I'm
there.
pointing at Sam now.
Yeah. I'm pointing at Max. That's
I'm pointing at
Max.
Sam.
That's Sam.
Who-
That's
That's
Jaina.
Travis.
Who's here?
And
Nobody's there.
there you go. There's
My camera
There you
is
go.
flipped.
Travis.
So this is
I
Jaina
think-
and that's Sam.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Did you do
Oh.
a mirror? Did you mirror your camera?
I think I mirrored my camera. It's more comfortable for me.
Let's see. Is there a way you can?
Can I ask you a question? When you unmirror it and you see your face in reverse,
I'm not
does
gonna
that
unmirror
freak
it.
anybody out?
I'm not a fan. I just mirrored myself, so I feel like I'm proper.
When you do that, you become hyper aware of your asymmetries that you've become aware of just looking at normally, and then you flip it and you're like, oh my God, is that what I look like?
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, that makes sense. Dude, because we're super perception oriented for faces. And if you see your face in only one way all the time, like I'm on the on the work chat all the time, and I see it this way. So if I see it like this, I'll be like super distracted.
Hmm.
The other side. Okay, this is Jaina. So this is Sam up there,
Yeah,
and this
yeah,
is
yeah.
Max. Okay, I'll remember that for the broadcast. But in my life, it's over here, bros. Yeah, Jaina is my wife. We've been married for how long now, babe? 18, 19 years. So
Yeah,
long.
almost 19. Yeah.
19.
My wife.
Yeah, my
We hit
wife.
19 this year too.
You guys did
Nice.
19, Sam?
Really?
Congrats, bro.
Oh,
This year as well.
congratulations.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
Free.
You got Max the dog. Max the dog.
Yep. And
Yeah,
I
I
have
want to
a
know.
dog.
I want to know Max the dog story because was his name Max?
He was Max when I got him, yeah.
Oh.
He was born Max. He came out with a Max name tag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The funny thing is, he's always been Max, even before he was born. The interesting thing about like the way time is that once something happens, it will have always happened that way.
Mm,
So he will have always been Max.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
mind bender. All right, so let me throw it over to Sam. Sam, what keeps you going right now? What are you thinking about lately? It could be family, business, whatever you got going on. What are you thinking about?
A lot of those things. I think, I got 2 boys, 8 and 10, so there's a lot of family thinking about things. I think, with both Yes, the agency that we found with 2 other people, Ken and Michael, who you've gotten to know last year, I think that's been keeping us busy. And I think for me, I don't know, the thing that pops to mind is just time, right?
Okay.
How do you make time useful for others? How do you make the most of time for yourself? I think even when, our team is now about 10 people, and now it's really about taking kind of what we know and how do we expand that and help others best use their time with what we know. Someone who gets to know you in a short period of time, and then you have expectations on them, crossing that gap can be very difficult. They actually don't know all the things that you know. They don't know all the assumptions, what went into everything. And so if you want people to have very similar outcomes to what you think is correct, and of course there's always opportunity to learn there, then it means you have to explain a lot of things and question a lot of things that you do. And I feel like, I don't know if you've been doing anything long enough, I think you can be dropped into any room, in any situation, and go. I don't need the context. I don't need to know what's going on. I just need to know a little bit that this is my remit, and I'm able to move forward.
That's Jason
the moment
Bourne.
you have to explain that to others, you're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
What exactly is a brand strategy job? How do we do positioning? Right? In the moment, it's super easy, but in the long, it feels like it's a kind of interesting joy to work through mentally from first principles again.
Mm-hmm.
Not completely, because I'm not totally starting from scratch, but I think for me, that's been in my head a lot of like, how do we develop an organizational culture and structure that allows us to kind of grow beyond the core team? This is always the challenge for small agencies, but at the same time, feel like a family. Like I really love our group of people, and these are people I would just want to hang out with, even if we weren't working with them. And I'm like, how do you preserve that?
Right. So what do you do? Oh, go ahead, Max.
Sorry, no, I was going to say it's interesting that you're viewing this from like a business perspective, because you did mention like when you meet someone or getting to know someone, and I was actually thinking of it from a personal perspective, because it is difficult meeting someone and you kind of like, they don't know who you are. They don't know your story. They don't know what kind of guy you are. And often like, it's easy to forget that when like dealing with someone, be like, they know what kind of guy, they know I'm just joking around. And like, people don't, so you do have to like kind of reintroduce yourself every time. And I'm, viewing it from that individual perspective, hopefully eventually can shed some light on that kind of zoomed out. How does a group organize with these principles in a professional setting? What have you done to like further that process, or to, I guess that's just onboarding, right? It's a type of onboarding.
It's a kind of onboarding. I think we're trying to separate out like the technical aspects of like onboarding, which, everyone goes through when you kind of join an organization. We're still very small and flexible. Like we're about 10 total. And so I think we're really, if I'm honest, we're trying to work through what should we do. It's a little bit like when you kind of know everyone, you can kind of build that relationship informally, right? I can have a one-on-one. We're in enough group meetings together where we're working together that we're all overlapped. But you always just hear those stories. At some point, there'll be people on the call that I've never met. And so I think we're kind of trying to figure out what's the foundation that you need so that you never have that gap in some ways. I know it's inevitable if we continue to grow and if we want to grow, to that kind of size. But I think just it sounds so pedantic and boring, and it's something that I've in some ways never really liked doing, but you just have to literally write every single thing out. Right. What is the exact process? No. Don't write just the line that says, here's our hiring process. Like talk to them, interview them, decide. No, that could be 5, 8, 10 pages. This is all the questions. This is all the rubric. This is how we come together afterwards. And so I feel like that's the part where, I was just putting together an outline internally for like our operating framework. Just the outline is 6 pages. Like I haven't even gotten into the details yet. So I think that's some of it. And so I hope that creates a little bit of a self-replicating mechanism internally that allows us all to kind of grow and expand, continue to do great work and all that stuff.
Do you do a lot of documentation for your family as well? This is something Jane and I have been talking about. I'm like, hey, babe, we need like a list of our chores so we know, we need to like know our schedule better and things like this. Like Sam, how do you is organizing a business similar to organizing a family?
I think so. It's probably just a difference of scale, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you've been married 19 years, you can take a lot. There's a lot of leeway in a relationship. 19 years.
Because you know each other so well.
You know each other so
going
well.
back to what we were talking. Yeah.
Yeah,
You can
and
finish
someone
each
might be like,
other's
Sandwiches.
sandwiches.
I knew it.
I do have to say that ChatGPT is like, as that's entered our relationship, has been helping us.
How's that? How's that?
We have
What
to
do you mean?
change facts here. We have to now know. Entering, I love it. Entering the relationship.
South Park
Travis,
just did a whole episode about that.
Really? Oh, yeah.
Explain how has ChatGPT helped our?
Well, I
or
feel like give ChatGPT like, this is our schedule, our time frame, this is our family dynamic.
Yeah.
It helped me make like our chores. It helped me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told it because I wanted to start working out with our son, and I said, "What's a good workout for an 11-year-old and a 41-year-old to do together?" And it, printed us out a good workout. So I think there is some uses. So you say like for scheduling and stuff, Jana?
Yeah, using it. I feel like what you're talking about, Sam, if there's a way to like input things that are, you see like the pattern, this is kind of our manual. If there's a way to like use that to you don't have to write all of the pages. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love that. I think we've on just the note of tools, we've used like Greenlight. I have no affiliation with that company, but we've used that tool as a way it tracks all the chores. You can assign weekly balances. It allows them to like get a little bit of a feeling for finance, tiny bit. They have their own little MasterCard that they have a spending limit on, so they can begin to kind of use that and buy things on their own, which I think is nice.
Mm-hmm.
But I think to your point, Jada, I think that's true. You can help it fill out some of the detailed parts. I think the part that I think we still think about and we've developed in various ways is just the values part. I met a friend and just said, I won't mention his last name, but he just said like they had a value structure where they could say in their family, that's not an XYZ thing we do, right? That's not one of our values. And I thought that was kind of in this kind of Ben Franklin approach of like having a certain set of values like that define who you are. I don't know. I feel we haven't crystallized that. We have a couple phrases we say, but I feel like that part is still kind of interesting to tease out.
Having a code is very important.
Yeah.
It's the bedrock of a civilized society.
Yeah, we've had a few catchphrases. Sometimes our kids give them to us. Like when Parker was young, she would just go around telling everybody, "We're the friendly Nielsen's." And like and it kind of like became a part of like our DNA. Like when we show up, we just try to be friendly, you know, not be like in our own, you know, like little spaces, but just like be open. And Jana, you're getting love in the chat here. We're excited to see you.
Can I step in though, real quick?
Go for it.
So usually we don't do introductions because we're on it all the time and it's podcast style, right? But I think we should introduce Sam, not just to the audience, but to me. This is the first time we're meeting. So to get a little context kind of about what you're talking about work and you have 10 people on your team. You're trying to figure out these systems. Give us a little background. What do you do? How do you know Travis?
It's a bio, We skipped the bio.
Yeah, let's do the bio. Okay. I'm a founding partner of Both and Yes. We're a creative agency. We've talked about this. We love working at the intersection of really strategy, which is focused on primarily on brand strategy, design, and technology. We have 3 partners, myself, Ken Frederick, and Michael Lin, both one in San Francisco, one in New York. And we really kind of put the agency around trying to build an agency built more on strategy. Also we love this idea of paradox, which is why we kind of came up with the name of shifting kind of from this either or framework from, a lot of perspectives. You can do this or this, you can have this or this, to saying like, why can't we have both? And the yes is a little bit, I think, this exclamation point. I feel like there can be a vibe when I've either worked with or been partnered with other agencies where like, we can do that if you want. We would rather do it this way, but there's that collaborative kind of energy sometimes is missing. And I think we wanted to show up a little bit like Friendly Nielsen's, just be like, let's do this, right?
We're yes and.
Invited us into your company. You've trusted us with something that you think that we can solve. you have opinions, and you're right to have them because you're the expert at your own business. What we can do is bring some insights and hopefully some energy. And it's a little bit like cheesy, but like kind of, let's jump in and let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's, I think, the vibe that we've tried to instill. Even I think we were on a meeting the other day with a client. It was a little touch and go meeting. Sometimes we were getting a little pushback on some things. We flipped it around at the end, and then we got a text back, and they just said, "Hey, they loved your guys' energy," and she never says that about agencies. And so, I think that's what we try to do. Is like we're all about that Google Freeze of meeting where the user is. So we've done that since last year. We've been very, very busy. We have about 10 now. We all met in Brand Studio, which is where I spent a handful of years, and then across Google in a couple different places. And that's how I know Mr. Trav. We were on a project. One of our clients is YouTube. And just one day someone said something about Hawaii, I think, right?
Yeah, like they were starting a meeting.
Like, dude, do you live on Oahu or something like this?
Well, there's this, the story is like, there's this 6 a.m. meeting for me because I'm over here in Hawaii, and I'm like just blurry eyed, just chilling in the room waiting for it to start. And then somebody's, starting the meeting. They're like, hey, we got a big team here all the way from Zurich, New York, California, even Hawaii. And I thought they were talking about me, and I was like, this, and they're like, what's up, Sam? And I was like, what? Who's Sam? And so I'm looking in like the invite guest list, on the chat. I find your name and I side chat you. I'm like, are you in Hawaii? And so that's kind of how we met. And then you invited me out to surf with all your crew. You have a whole dad crew, which has been fun. It's been months now, since like maybe October, November. We've been surfing together like every week.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a highlight, man.
We got a chance to meet Jane a couple of times, and Parker and Eames as well. And plus one, you guys are a very friendly family.
Advertising doesn't lie.
Yeah. The brand. And so tell us about your surf crew. How did you organize that? And what's that about?
I think it was just, we were talking about it. So I surfed a little bit in college, in university, got out. I got back into it when I moved. I lived in Panama for a couple of years, started doing it there. I skated growing up a lot. And, stupidly, I had a bit of an injury, required a hip replacement at one time. I still get some weird looks from the wife around that whole incident. And so I looked at other sports. And in the end, when I talked to the surgeon afterwards, I asked him about surfing, and he said, no.
No.
He's like, yeah, sharks are dangerous too.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good answer. And a lot of other things were okay, like horseback riding. I had a whole list.
Horseback
riding with a hip. Oh,
that seems more
hip intensive.
Yeah.
I know.
Right, yeah.
But then I went out here for my checkup with the surgeon, I think maybe 6 months after I got here. And maybe because she's local, she's just like, no, you're fine. Like,
right.
Don't do anything. Don't get crazy. You're good. Right. And so that started like my head getting back into it again. And then, our kids go to Waialae here, right, which is a little bit past here by Kaimuki, and a bunch of dads. We've just been talking about going, and I think we just said, well, let's just do it. Like,
yeah,
you met everyone. Mike and Gary, and we have Kevin. We've added a couple more people to the crew as well, like Manny. So we've got like a nice group of people. Not everyone comes, but I feel like it's a nice little, I don't know, man. I feel it's like I grew up in the church a lot. It's not my thing anymore for me personally, but that's a little bit of my Sunday morning church. Guys, be in the water. It's a couple hours, and we then still get to get on with our day. So, I love it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Sunrise every Sunday. I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Absolutely.
But what's interesting to me though is that like I've noticed this about you. Surf Dads is one example, but also like these kind of we've been to a pool party of yours, and a few other like things. Like we went to a play. Your son was in a play, and every time we're like meeting your people, and you just really impressed me with you're a community builder. And I really admire that, although I just know that I'm not like that. I'll sit in my house alone for 5 years, So can you tell me like what is it like to be a community builder? What do you do? How does that work? And like how is it like what impact does it have on your life to be that type of center of community all the time? Or am I? Yeah.
No, I think
am I
that's
accurate? Like,
no, I think I wouldn't probably characterize myself that way, but I somehow I could see the perception of that, meaning that I tend to just be kind of quite curious about people, and I don't know, I really love meeting new people. I love getting to know people. I'm I'm a hugging kind of guy.
yeah,
It's a little bit of my nature, and like if you're in, you're in, and kind of the more the merrier, and I think that just brings a great deal of joy to me. I think even growing up, I think I was there. It's not so unique, but like I was always like I had my skate crew, right? And then I had, some of us snowboarded. That was also included some different guys. And then I played a little bit of sports, so I knew some of the jock guys. I did halfway decent in school, not always great, but halfway decent. And so I got to know some of those guys. And university was the same thing. I did a little bit of debate, a little bit of student government, a little bit of business stuff. And I think I feel in that word of, that historical word of dilettante, without being too negative, right? That I love kind of just touching a lot of things. And so even, we were talking about family phrases. Our family phrase in the morning with the boys is stay curious, be flexible, have fun. And I really just thought, like, if I can give you 3 things in life and you forget everything else that I've ever said, if you just think, oh my God, I remember when Dad, that dumb phrase he always said?
Yeah.
Be curious, be flexible, have fun. And I feel like if you can do that, I think you can really do anything. And I think to your point, Jane, about like Gen AI and all the new technologies, if you can just treat them with a sense of curiosity, like a tangible curiosity, then you'll be fine. So in the end, by having that curiosity, I feel like I'm in a lot of different places, often people that don't know each other. Right. And so when I have something, I want everyone to come. And then that's where like, oh, you're in that? What's that? So yeah, it's I guess just a natural thing for me.
Maybe it's just me, but I feel like curiosity also requires bravery. You have to be able to risk the embarrassment of, the thing not working out or whatever. Yeah. Do you see that in other people, like that, like they won't go for it, where to you it seems like, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking to my sister this morning, and like we're cut a little bit differently, and she would probably say like, yes, thank you for the +1 on dumb dad phrases. They're an okay thing.
Best part.
I think people just cut differently. I can have a failure. I typically never ever use the word, and literally tomorrow it's just gone.
Right.
And then I think I've learned, because I'm a little bit, I think a shy person in some ways. I've learned to always just push myself into new situations, and so I feel like that maybe is a big piece, that you have to be kind of cut a certain way to not have failure be a thing that like drags behind you. Yeah. And I do know others who it's a bigger thing, like taking chances in their risk algorithm. The variables around like the negative component they're not wrong. They're just quite big and transparent. And I think for me, I'm usually just like erasing them, right? Just like, it'll be fine.
I heard a quote the other day, and I loved it. And it was, failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a part of success.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a nice way of putting it. Because people get weighed down by failure, and they're like, oh, I'm a failure.
Or afraid of it.
And it's like, well, they're on the way to success is part of it, know. But people often let that rejection weigh them down.
Yeah. We've got
I kind of enjoy that process. I feel like I told Travis about this. I kind of like to embrace sucking at something. Like when you first are learning, and you're like, oh man, I'm so bad at this. But that transition of working really hard to learn that skill, and then progressing and eventually getting better to like we're at the year mark, you're like, actually I'm doing pretty good now. I feel like it's fun to learn and grow.
That's also difficult for certain people, because once you get to a certain point, you're like, I know that. Or like tell me if any of you guys can relate with this, when you have like an idea for something and it's so crystal clear and you know exactly how to do it, that it's almost like it's already done, that the urgency and that excitement of doing it almost leaves because it's already figured out. There's no fun in figuring it out anymore, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you're an idea person, sometimes the romance of an idea can be enough to fulfill like the need to make it. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I think
That's
it's
why
so true.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think it's so true. I think the idea. I think one person at some point said, ideas are the thing that matters most, and in business, you're like, not really. Like, you kind of do have to get in there and do it, right?
Yeah, the doers.
Well, that's what I was going to say. A lot of startups fail, and I've seen it because people come up with these, grand ideas or ambitious things, and in their head they're like, it's done because I've already thought about it. And very often the excitement of a thing doesn't last as long as it actually takes to do the thing. So very often they'll, then have their workers working on something, but then they come up with other ideas. And now there's more and more stuff. And that seems to be a trap with startups where people are getting overwhelmed by the idea guy at the top having too many ideas all the time because he doesn't have the patience for one of them to get finished, No,
I think that's, I see that all the time, having worked with a lot of startups, having had startups before, just, and that misnomer that somehow everyone just can't keep up with me.
Yeah.
Right? I can't believe the team is not doing this. And you're like, well, if you wrote some of that stuff down, if you made a plan for it, if you assigned some budget to it and clarified the resourcing, we probably could do some of those things. But, then it becomes a little bit like, well, you just don't get it.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Right. We've got some comments here. How do I work from Hawaii? I'm in California, have 20 years experience. Where can I find these jobs? I don't know, man. I don't have a Hawaiian job either. I'm here because during the pandemic, when everybody was working from home, we snuck off. That's it. And it's like, they want me back, but I'm like, no. And it's hard. It's hard to stay, actually. It's like, how do I stay in Hawaii?
Well, I'd like to
Yeah.
I think some of the best advice nowadays is build a dope portfolio, find companies that you like that will allow you to work remotely, and contact them directly. Have something to show. And nowadays you can work remotely, if you make enough and you don't live outside of your means, you can live anywhere.
Yeah.
As long as you have the internet and a laptop.
And just to add to that, sometimes it's like, go there. Like it's not about getting the opportunity to go there or getting the permission to go there. It's just about packing your bags and going there and like forcing it to happen. And
let
maybe
Jesus take the wheel.
Let Hawaiian Jesus.
The cool Jesus.
Yeah. But I think that's like sometimes like when you take the first few steps and you're just stumbling down a hill after that, and you can't, like, you have to take the next few steps or else you'll crash, And so like a lot of the times it's about inertia, your life just in general. So if you want to go somewhere, go there, and then the rest will kind of like, you'll have to figure that out because you are there.
You have to figure it out, or you end up on the other side of that.
An NPC. You're NPC.
Yeah.
But the worst case is, you go after the thing, you try to force it, and then it doesn't work.
You're such
That's
a
the
wholesome
worst
guy.
case. That's the worst case.
You know how many bad things can happen in the world? You can wake
Sharks.
up in a bathtub with a missing kidney. Who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen?
Mohammed, we have a cute comment from Mohammed. This is, by the way, Jaina, because I was showing pictures of our meet cute and our wedding. Yeah. I love your love story, Mohammed says. And also, here's a question. What about inviting a viewer to the podcast to tell their story, intro, and how they know Trav and Max? I think that'd be a fun idea. In fact, I was talking to Max in the DevTips chat this week, and I was like, what if we just throw out like this live stream link toward the end of the show and invite people on? So we might try to do something like that. Yeah.
It'd be fun.
So stick around, and maybe we'll throw out a link later on.
Nice.
Sam, I wanted to get back to you though, because I know you do have your finger in a lot of pies. Every time I talk to you, you're always like, well, that would be an interesting idea for a business. Like you're very like entrepreneurial in that way. I want to know about what your morning routine is like. Like every time that I meet you, by the way, it's like before the sun rises. So like I know that you're an early riser. Tell me like how do you organize your day?
So I'm usually, I guess you could say my morning starts early in the evening, meaning that like I usually try to be in bed between 7:30 and 8. Like I've just learned that I just perform 100% better, maybe more, in the morning. And then
Yeah.
I'm usually up between 3:30 and 4. And then I think really a lot of that was pushed. Like by last year, we had a client that was in the Middle East. So a lot of those calls just had to happen very early because it was not only East Coast time, but it was like UAE time. And I just kind of found that like it's a beautiful kind of side benefit of being out here.
Mhm.
I really dislike being the opposite. Like
Yeah.
if someone's ahead of you and you're 6 hours behind, I feel like it's a perpetual trying to catch up.
Yeah,
feel
I
like-
feel lazy. I feel like,
I know.
yeah, right? Like you're not up yet, and like, wait, it's like
Yeah. And
2 in the
so
morning here.
I think that's the, and then I think, and then usually I'd put like things start, I take in the morning, I'll work out maybe for 30, 45 minutes. I have like a little weight set up here, protein drink, like all those types of things that I have in the morning. Grab a quick shower, and then I'm usually in front of the computer. Meetings probably start 5:30 or 6, and then usually that will just run till really between meetings, probably run till noon here, and then I get a couple hours to do some actual work, and then I do try to be out in the afternoons if I can, but I've just found it's really, really difficult. Like my day probably ends like around 3 or 4, so it's.
Did you say what time you're waking up? I didn't catch that.
3 or 4.
3:30 to 4. Yeah.
Damn, that's like that's more intense than I thought, bro. That's wild, bro.
I know. I tell you, like, if you're ever like interested in trying, I just feel like number one for me, time just slows. Like,
Yeah.
and especially I usually use a timer when I work, and so if I set that timer for like 90 minutes, like that thing just feels like it ticks on forever. And I know that if I have to really crank on a deadline, I know in 3 hours in the morning, I can pretty much do anything that needs to be done. Like
Mhm.
my head is like sharp. So I just feel like I don't know. I know other people find that time in twilight hours, like late at night after kids are to bed. They have this kind of golden, like maybe 11 to 2, right? So I think it's probably exactly the same way, depending on whether you're a lark or owl, whatever those balances are. But for me, it's nice, and the fact that I get to work from home is a bonus because I get to see the kids throughout the day. I don't have to leave the house. Yeah, the gym was that was a COVID thing, but that I felt was also one of my best investments of having just like a full gym rack in the house.
In the house, yeah.
Like a big bonus.
Yeah,
being
those-
able to do that at home is huge.
Those
I wanted
3
to
hours.
ask you about that. Sorry, go ahead, Travis.
No, I was just gonna like plus one those morning moments where like nobody else is awake and the house is yours, everything is still and quiet, your phone is not buzzing yet.
Yeah.
Those really are magic moments. I'm like inspired that you're like really, capturing them so early. That's great. Yeah, I'm like around 5:30, 6 a.m. and I thought that was good, but like
That's good, right? That's
no,
good.
it's not 3 a.m. Like wow, like you're right. Like there's a lot that you could do, but you're right as well. Like it starts the night before when you're going to bed at 7:30, 8 p.m.
Yeah, and I think there was a thought in my head that I felt like, this is my personal perspective on time of just I was finding this difference between like high value hours and low value hours. I found that aside from meeting with friends, like the social components of staying out late are incredibly, they're amazing, right? That's where you connect with people. But often that was connected to like with eating late or drinking late, and I just felt like, or binge watching something, or like being on my phone, scrolling through something, and you're like an hour goes by, and I was just like, versus if I took all those unproductive hours, took the same time, shove them into the morning, those things will never happen.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of like that for myself that I went through to kind of get there.
Yeah, it requires discipline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I think that's true. I feel like, is it a kind of discipline? I think it's maybe like a selfish appeal to what I prefer.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Okay.
I like it is I guess it looks like discipline if you don't do it.
Yeah.
It's just your routine if you do it. You know what I mean? I feel like in a perfect world, if I'm able to carve out 2 hours, I mean, I'm trying to figure out a way that I can do it so I could surf 1 or 2 days, but I can't figure that out because we can't get out there at 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
But like, even like a bit more meditation, a bit more journaling, more than I usually do, I feel would be nice. And those morning times feel like, they give me a little bit of flexibility around that.
That's awesome. Max, did I interrupt you earlier? You were going to say something?
What's that? No, I was going to ask you, you mentioned part of your morning routine is a protein shake. I was going to ask about your supplement game. Are you on AG1? What
What's your supplement
how are you
game?
making sure your diet stays optimized as well, right? Optimizing for time and everything and is great, but it only works if your brain is optimized, and nutrition has a lot to do with that. So how's your nutrition game?
Well, funny you should say that. Actually, no, I think
today's sponsor.
That's right. AG1, I've been on before. We've used like Mo, my wife. She gets like she's like the Laird products.
The what products?
Laird Hamilton has a brand called Laird.
Right.
He has his own kind of supplement, kind of green powder. So 40 grams of protein plus a couple scoops of that. I do some light. I'm not really a big nutraceutical person, but there's a couple like morning supplements of just ubiquinol, vitamin C. There's a couple other things I have on that list. I try to keep it relatively low key, and then just I'm a little bit spoiled. So Mo prepares like pretty much all our food. I'm trying to get back to that. But yeah, so we eat quite healthy, I think, for the most part, and I'd say like 80% hopefully just comes through that. Like we're big soup and salad everyday eaters.
Nice. Yeah.
So lots of greens, and then some kind of like fish or curry or something that Mo makes. So we try to do that as much as possible. And I've been doing that for like a while, and hopefully it helps. I mean, time will tell, right?
How do you feel?
Yeah. I feel good. I mean, I think, some people have said like the idea of even focusing for, people talk about like, the Pomodoro technique. Like I only focus 30 minutes at a time. I don't know. I can be in a, if I'm really focused, usually it's of course on deadline, which helps. Like I can create 4 hours straight if I need to. I think it's probably everyone here, right? If you're in it and you have something to do,
that's
so
the best
I
feeling.
Feel like, I feel like that game feels like pretty good still.
Yeah. Mohammed says that when he was in his learning, his first steps into the world of coding, he was only able to sleep for 4 hours because work was so steady, and had to learn how to be a software engineer.
Nice.
And you would watch DevTips.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dude, those days when when you have a defined goal and you're ambitious and you're going for it, like 4 hours of sleep is enough, like not to be unhealthy here, but like I really like those times where I'm like, I don't need to sleep. I have a mission. I have a thing to do. And I feel like I'm accomplishing something, those are
adrenaline, the energy from something else.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that a lot, like the different forms of energy. And it is a tangible energy that's created. Mm-hmm. I mean, chess players will burn like 3,000 calories playing chess, right? There is a tangible, actual energy that's being created, and you can, in those states, sustain off of that energy.
Yeah, my favorite's adrenaline. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Meaning that is it a noticeable state you tried to get yourself in, or you're just hyper aware of when you're feeling it, or both?
Both. I feel like through exercising the certain types of activities I'll choose, I can get that. But also like what you're talking about, the excitement of a project or meeting a deadline, I also can feel that pump come through, where you're just like, I think a lot of the staying up with the late hours and that kind of thing happens from, and there's probably a lot of other chemicals happening too.
What do you do to try to get
an adrenaline junkie?
Yeah. I want her to show off. So what do you do to get into that state, babe?
Oh, on like projects or physically?
Yeah, what do you do in your life you said you like the feeling of adrenaline. Like, what do you do to foster that feeling?
Oh yeah, I feel like in athletics, it's always come through with like racing or taking on challenges like ultra marathon or now it's Muay Thai. So every time I show up for a sparring session, I'm gonna have adrenaline dump.
Yeah.
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 That's fun.
Nothing like a black eye to get your heart pumping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, Travis told me that you're going for longevity, that you're gonna try to live to 100 is your goal.
Well, I think if Mo was here, she'd say like, no, we were shooting for 120.
120. Okay.
But I mean, you know, I think I don't know if you read that Outlive book, right, by Peter Tia, which I think I passed to a lot of people. And I think this idea of like health span versus lifespan, I think is an interesting, I don't think I heard that up until 5 years ago.
Health span.
Like, right, this idea that
Quality versus quantity.
You don't want your life
Of
to be like up here and then this plateau of a bunch of years that could be perceived as lower value than you would assess in our present state. You really want this thing to like peak and just drop.
And then just die.
Pipe break, shove me into pipeline.
Yeah.
Maddie's not coming back today, right?
Peak and drop.
120.
Yeah. And so I feel like, I don't know, I think that having a little eye on that is kind of interesting. It also, our kids are 8 and 10. So we've had our kids a little bit later than others that we know. And so there's a part that is around that I think has been just a lucky benefit that we need we want to be around as long as possible for them as well, you know?
That's cool. I like that point of view. Like having your kids at a later time in life compared to like a lot of your peers is a benefit because it's like the added motivation to stay healthy, to continue on and have that longevity. Yeah.
Vitality.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I
I
like
the adrenaline thing though, Jane. I think that's it's a good point that people talk about adrenaline junkie per se, but I think just the feeling of adrenaline of like your body telling you there are lots of unknowns around you, right? It's like it's a big cue, and so you have to be hyper alert and like your body's attuned to things. I think is a wonderful state, and a much smaller scale, like when Kai was doing the play, you know, like he's trying to get punched in the face or anything, but he, you know, you could tell he was open to understanding the feeling of like, oh, there's some tension happening here.
Yeah.
It feels
uncomfortable
like nervousness.
novelty.
Yeah, a little uncomfortable, but there's a little energy that goes with that as well. And, you know, trying to get them to understand that that's like a really beautiful piece. Like, and it doesn't peak that often in our normal lives. Like something has to force us to do that.
Yeah.
That's why I hate people who say they love traveling.
Tell me about that. Why?
Well, going back, like essentially what we're talking about are uncomfortable states of novelty, right? Where you physiologically respond to the situation and your senses actually do get heightened. And up until very, very recently, when people traveled, it was not for vacation. It was because they were run out of the village or they ran out of food. Like it was a dangerous thing. And a physiological response to being in an unknown place is that your senses get heightened. Things smell different. You can see things differently. And that's why now when people are traveling and they're like, oh, it's so pretty here, I could live here. And it's, oh, you know, and then if you actually do live there, after a while, it loses its charm, right? That novelty wears off. And that's why I was saying I hate that, like, on social media, you see people are like, I love to travel. It's like, of course you do. Everybody does. And it releases this novel response to novelty. And it's a form of adrenaline. It's like low level. It's a low level like dopamine chemical bath that your brain is awash in.
Yeah. That's interesting. I was thinking actually last night as I was drifting to sleep about like the different states, you know, like of being that you kind of find yourself in physically. So the examples that I had was I was like, because last night was Friday and I usually go on a run Friday night, but instead we did a few other things. So I missed my run last night. And I was just thinking about what it's like to run up my hill and just be like, what is that like? And follow me here. And it's like a state of being that is not necessarily like difficult. It's just what you're doing at that time, you know, and maybe it's more taxing on your body and maybe during the time it feels, but it's just as real as sitting in a chair, you know. And I was like, oh wait, when I'm surfing, I'm surrounded by like this beautiful sunrise and these waves coming in. What's up, Sam? But it's just it's just as amazing as being, you know, around the dinner table or like driving to pick up your kid from school or something like that. And I was thinking like these states are variable, but the constant is you and like what you're like how you're experiencing it, you know? Like could being stuck in traffic be as like awe-inspiring as, you know, being at the top of the hill after a run out of breath or, you know, about to catch a wave. And I think that it could be, and I'm trying to like get there where like everything I do is just awe-inspiring and maybe even like adrenaline tapping, you know, something like that.
I think it can. Yeah, I feel I've been inspired by Max has been sharing his videos with us, and he goes around and explores and kind of takes this visitor lens, right? I don't know, you can explain that more, Max, but from what I'm getting as a viewer of that, I feel like I've been inspired to walk around more and be like, oh, I'm gonna like pretend I don't live here for a minute.
Thanks.
And try to find these little details that are really beautiful and maybe take a picture or
Yeah, I mean, and that for me is intentional because I do know that part of living happily is maintaining novelty. Part of loving where you live is maintaining like an appreciation for the novelty. I was with you until the second.
I mean, that's like the lowest, right? So I get a little bit ragey. I'm like, you know, especially if I'm listening to like punk rock or something on the radio. Yeah, that's the thing. Like if I listen to like crazy music, I get like so agitated in traffic.
About that, it is, you know, you're a positive guy, Travis. You're a very positive, happy, wholesome guy, and you're like, everything can be awe-inspiring. And what's interesting is everything isn't, right? And it's really difficult.
What's interesting is that you're wrong.
No. It's not that you're wrong. It's just the other side, because the fact is, if you're looking at things that way, right? And you're right, if you can emotionally disconnect from the effort your body is going through while you're going up the hill and say, I'm still the same guy here as I am when my body's doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very helpful when you are going through something rough, right? And if you're going through something rough and traumatic, you know, you can't be like, this is awe-inspiring, but you could be like, this isn't that bad. I'm still the same guy as I am when this isn't happening. And it can help you navigate those difficult times. And then hopefully you find the awe in them afterwards.
I read this book called God, Sex, Comedy, and he was talking about how he likes to view his experience and even his difficult problems as an episode of some kind of television drama or TV or comedy or whatever. And so when you're going through a hard time or when he's experiencing something difficult, he likes to say like, oh, I wonder what the character's going to do, you know, next week and next episode, like what's going to happen. Like, so it does maintain that mystery, the awe of like, you know, like the best episodes of the TV shows you like are the ones that are like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? I don't know how they're going to get out of this. You know, those are the best episodes. And so if you think of your life as like a teleseries, it's like the best moments of your life, the best episodes are when like you've been in a tight spot, when it's been difficult and there's been some navigation to get out of it. I mean, we love drama, and even in our own lives, you could love it.
Yeah. I love that. I love the idea of like awe of like I think Max, your point of like, you know, not everything that needs like awe-inspiring. But if I flip that word, and I think I had a situation the other day where I'm trying to, and maybe this is where you're going, Travis. It doesn't have to be awe-inspiring, but I will embrace everything.
Yeah.
I don't mean token embrace. I mean embrace, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a way to say like, you know, the driving in traffic. I know we saw the comment, but like that could be like, you just embrace the moment. And if it's teaching you something about how you see stress or what creates stress, you know, I had a situation like a little while ago, and it was there was a little bit of stress involved, and I found myself going, I love this. I love that it's teaching me something about how I need to better react to this. And in the end, it was like, I was a little bit like, okay, so I was almost trying to coach myself that like the future is going to be filled with much more stress.
Mm-hmm.
I can teach myself to like love it, even love it selfishly for what it gives me as personal growth. I'm like, I don't know. So I think, I don't know, both points, Max and Travis, I give points on the board for both you guys.
Oh no, mine is in support. I'm actually saying the same thing that Travis is saying, just in a slightly different way. It's not against it. It's in support of it, because not everything, like Ram Dass, right? He says, "I will eat it all, the good and the bad. Eat it all."
Eat it all.
But I come from a place of not lying to myself. If it's bad, it's bad. Accept it. Eat it all. Take it in, and love that. Don't turn. I'm not a sugarcoating kind of guy. You know what I mean? So I like to take that position.
I put this tarot card on the screen. It's called the Fool, and I really identify with this card a lot because like if you notice this person is foolish. They're traveling. They have their bag is packed. It's not a head. It's like a knapsack.
What?
It's not a head.
Samurai fool.
I can see it.
So they're journeying, right? Like it's a knapsack. They're journeying. Their head is looking up. They're optimistic. They have a flower, so they're stopping, along the way and enjoying the journey. And also they're balancing precariously on a cliff. So there's danger, right? Like, and you could say, like, if he takes another step, he's going to go right over. And I think and there's also a cute puppy in there, so that's nice. But I think like this card really, really like exemplifies like how I would in my ideal state approach the experience of living, just like to be foolish, to be interested, to be happy because I have the opportunity for a journey. Maybe it's precarious, maybe I'm on a cliff, but wow, what an exciting moment,
Yeah.
He eats it all.
I agree. I have had tumultuous times in my life, so I'm not seeking instability or to be a fool or to not be looking forward when a cliff is coming.
Fair enough. Had enough of that stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to chill now. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm walking the other way.
I'll pop this again because it still applies. We had another comment from Mohammed who wanted to be the first DevTipster guest.
Yeah.
So stick around, Mohammed. We'll pop a link in the chat later on, and if you click it, you can come aboard.
I do have to say, Travis, you also build community because you built this online community. Even though it's like you were in your bedroom, you still brought people together.
Wow. I've actually really never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, sweetheart. Wow. Yeah. I lost my notes.
I think
we're going rogue.
I actually wanted to follow up with Sam about that. Because it does come naturally to people. It seems like it comes naturally to Sam, but some of the most interesting advice I've heard from like a music producer was find your crew. Find your people that will like support you and who are doing things like you. And we've all heard similar things, right? Like you can tell what kind of person you are by like your 3 closest friends or if you look, one of the things I love about comedy and hip hop is that comedians and rappers, they always have a posse. They have their crew and they come up together. And what do you think about that? And I know it kind of comes naturally to you, but right now you're also kind of questioning, like, how do I turn this group of people into a crew? How do I onboard them? What are your thoughts about that?
I love this question.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think when I thought of posse, I think the first thing I thought of is like my first, posse is not quite the right word. It's just my family.
Yeah.
It's like my core. Everything starts from there for me. Like this is the foundation that I think when we've talked about being anywhere, and home will just always be where we are. Doesn't matter what country, what city. So I feel like there's that part. And then I feel like with all of us, we have different aspects of our personality. And so we'll find people in different groups doing different things, right? So I'm tapped into a group of business owners here in the city. Through work, I get to connect with, technology and strategy and design. I have some others that I'm working only on a couple like small little software related things, right? That are about small projects. And so I think we find those little groups around. And I think I've always been very comfortable having a couple different groups where it's like it's almost like a kind of book clubs, if you will, where you talk about specific things and everyone in that group talks about specific things. And it has happened sometimes in the past, when I was living in Japan for many years, that I did sometimes bring groups together and they didn't gel. This group was more interested in this group was here. this person thought this person was a so-and-so. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Like, that for me, these two groups felt like perfect in their own ways to me, but to each other, they weren't going to be choosing to hang out together, And so I think I've tried to find those groups of people, because I think to your point, Max, that we want people around us that help us better understand the path we're on for ourselves, right? They reflect things back to us. They help point out new opportunities, right? Like if we use the fool example, like what you don't see in that picture is maybe other people around him going like, no, it's back that way, right? People in our lives like that. And I've just always loved the word serendipity. I think there's just so many things that I think have happened in my life that I could have never chosen specifically. They happened by kind of circumstance, and I was like pushed along that path. So I don't know if that answers things.
I
at
love
all.
calling it serendipitous because what I'm getting from you is that it's not necessarily something you've prioritized, but it's been just a byproduct of doing things that you're interested in.
Yes.
And I think that is the main thing. If you're just doing things that you're interested in, you will find people that are also interested in those things.
Yeah. Oh my God. 100%.
It just becomes a byproduct, right?
That's right. I think even for me, like the little tiny journey of the last 5 years, I worked at a place called Recon, which is a neuroscience institute. I worked in a section called the Brain Science Promotion Division as an advisor.
Wow,
promoting
brains.
So one of our big projects was to rebrand the institute, right? Because we were trying to internationalize, and it really just started getting me into design. Like, so I asked for a big, remember the glass-looking Macs, right? The G5s or whatever they were. That dates me a little bit. And I just started Illustrator, Photoshop, making the things. I literally hand designed the intranet with an Eng team because there was no off-the-shelf products. And at the same time, I read the book by Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi. I think I'm butchering his name, which
Flow.
is Flow.
Oh, Flow.
And the idea of when you find things disappearing in time, you should look at what those things are. And for me, it was design. And I had a couple conversations, and I'm like, okay, well, design maybe could be interesting. And I just finished my MBA. So I'm like, okay, now I'm doing this other thing. MBA was interesting. And then
what was your
MBA
MBA
in organizational behavior, but it was an MBA with a focus on organizational behavior and innovation. And so we got married, moved to New York. Short cut to the chase is I went to an orientation at the School of Visual Arts for the MFA design program because they were focused on entrepreneurship. And I'm like, I'm going to this. And I'm totally self-taught. I literally put some horribly embarrassing book together. If I were to look at it now, thankfully I can't find it. And I applied and I got in, and so I did a year before I dropped out, but I studied with a couple of interesting people there. But I say all that to be the person that got me into Google was a person from my design class. The two partners that I have now were from Brand Studio. I would never have met them had it not been for me actually going to SVA, had it not been from me being interested in design, having me read that book. And so I think this idea of the serendipity of just being open to paths feels like it kind of, it's the wrong word, but it flushes you into where you should be. It's the wrong image.
That makes sense. But yeah, being open to the current.
Yes, it's a nicer way to say it.
Yeah, I was giving my nephew some advice. He was telling me about his friend who had a channel that was popping off, and he was kind of wondering how he should feel about it, and and he's young, I was like, it's normal to feel a tinge of jealousy or something, and I was like, but just keep your eyes open, keep paying attention, because what you're seeing is activity around you. There's waves all around you, and what you're seeing are currents forming, and if that person is a boat and they're causing waves, there's nothing wrong with riding somebody else's waves, riding the wake, and then making your own, right? There's nothing wrong with kind of feeling the current out and just kind of allowing it to pull you where you allow it to pull you. Yeah, it's interesting because what's that?
I was just saying, when you combine that principle along with what Sam was saying, it's your squad, it's your posse, and if you get on the same wave, you share that together. It accelerates it. It kind of, yeah.
Yeah, you got to pay attention to what waves people are making around you. But what is interesting is taking that approach to it and kind of putting an importance on what's interesting to you, making sure that you're still enjoying yourself, because a lot of that other stuff, what's happening ultimately, it is this kind of like subconscious pattern recognition that's, you know, again, letting Jesus take the wheel, but it's your subconscious Jesus that's doing pattern recognition and kind of saying, oh, this looks nice over here, you know, and it's and it seems serendipitous when it happens, right? But in retrospect, you can look back and be like, oh yeah, I went to that school and then I met this person and then this happened, and you can kind of trace the steps, and it's like, well, it's not that serendipitous. This is a path that can be reflected upon. Yeah.
That's kind of what I like about being, old. I turned 41 last year. Like, I love the fact that when I, not bored, but when I feel that kind of longing to connect to somebody, I open up my phone book on my phone and I scroll, see who I haven't talked to in a year or two, tap, how you doing? What's going on in your life? I do that more than any other kind of social thing, more than I go out, more than I podcast, more than I do all this. Mostly I'm calling my friends on the phone. Max, this is kind of how DevTips got reignited, right? You were calling me, I was calling you, and I remember walking around Costco laughing about whatever it was, because I had a few minutes. I need to call my boy, and you're just making me laugh so hard. I was like, this needs to be broadcasted, and I suddenly the channel's back in my possession now. Why don't we just kick this off? And I think it's through, Jana, you were saying Travis being a community builder through these broadcasts and other things, but really I'm best at one-on-ones. That's where I really, really shine and feel connected to people. Mm-hmm. So I love interviewing people. I love sticking a mic in front of them and being like, what do you think about that? You know, that's where I feel strongly connected to people. And so calling people on the phone and having that connection, like here's 20 minutes, like just me and you in a little world discussing what's real to us. That feels really good.
I love that. It's a really beautiful reminder, right? I think, and I think just even that action, right? Yeah. It's not that. It's a lot of this is it would be the tendency, right? And that idea of I need to text before I call, like, hey, are you around? And no, it's no. If you're on the opposite end of my friend line, there's no texting. There's, hey, what's going on? And I think that's just a nice reminder that we all had that permission before. I think we've somehow thought that we've lost it or it's been taken away from us. So it's just a beautiful reminder of oh, after this, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make some calls today.
Yeah.
Making calls. I have a few people that never answer, and I call them and it just kind of it's become like a challenge or a game. I'm like, will you ever answer my phone call?
Oh, wow. But do you find that it's off? Is there a long enough list of people that you haven't talked to in a while? Because I think that's also a really powerful statement that you've, because we all have lives that change, which means that sometimes there are larger time gaps for no other fault than just the lives that we have. It has nothing to do with the relationship. And so how do you build those relationships to have them be so strong after a year or two, or these longer term relationships that you had over time?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I've been kind of thinking about and investing in. The thread of maintaining a connection is something that's a logistical thing. Like, are we connecting on LinkedIn? Are we connecting on, do I have your email and something? I was at a conference last year. I was at the awards, AWW Awards. And I was talking to the CEO of the awards, and he was like, "Hey, well, yeah, look me up on LinkedIn." And we were having a great conversation. We were vibing, and I go, "No, I call my friends. What's your phone number?" and he goes, "Okay," and he gave me his phone number. And then he lives in I think Spain, and so I waited till it was 11 o'clock p.m. at my time. I called him, and then he's just so overjoyed to hear my voice, because how many people call you and tell you that they miss you, on the phone?
Told him that you missed him?
He was like, "Travis, I love you so much. Thank you for calling." But he was, he was also matching that energy. He was like, "I don't say this a lot. I don't take this like, I love you. I love your energy." And I was like, "I love you too, buddy. I miss you too. We should definitely blah blah blah." And like maybe it's just a phone call every other year and like nothing, you know, like career wise or adventure wise eventuates from that. But you know, maybe it does. Like there's people that I've called that has turned into a job, that has turned into like a meetup, that has turned into a vacation together, you know. And I think it's just like dipping in you try not to let it go too long, like 2 or 3 years is max before you contact them again. But there's people that, yeah, I'll just like go through the phone book and they're like, hey, Travis is calling again. I get a phone call every 3 years. I'm like, yeah, what's up?
Yeah, I love that. It reminded me, I tried to, it sounds so kind of lame if I say it, but oh, nice. A list, I think I made a list once of just trying to be like, it was like all the names of people, you know, that I have on my list or whatever it was. And I tried to do like monthly, and I had a little thing, and it just became too much of like a logistical thing. I think it was a good point, but
yeah,
why wouldn't we do that, right? Why would we not invest? It's a little bit like we talked about starting the company with all the big ideas versus getting in there and building the company. One is incredibly unsexy, right? There's no talks about it. No one really wants to look at that. Like, you know, it's not beautiful design work. It's a document. A bunch of words that we will follow, and over time that can become a company, but it's just work, right? And so I don't know. It's just I think a really, really nice reminder of the work required to maintain great friendships and community, right? That they don't just happen.
Yeah. Relationships take work. It is funny when people think like the best things in life are serendipitous, that they do just happen, right? Like, you know, you don't just stumble upon a Ferrari in a mansion. You have to work for those things, right? And love and friendships are way more important for those, and they take way more work, actually. Like they are a lifetime of work to maintain good relationships. I think a lot of older people don't have friends anymore.
Right. Have you seen those charts?
Which charts?
There are these like so impactful graphs. There's like a series of like 7 or 8 graphs. It's like how you spend your time over the years. So it's like time with family it starts way high and then it kind of goes down over your lifespan. Time with friends kind of like peaks in the middle and then goes down. Time with coworkers like escalates here. Time alone is the only one that goes up forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And so like that's like, yeah, that it's swiping through these graphs, I was just like, whoa, this makes me really feel like the time I have with my kids at this age is so important, right? But going back to what you're saying about like having to do work to have relationships, I think there's something about that when we're young, we're placed into social settings, and those social settings, the systems foster relationships. Like you're in school, and so you have a friend from school. You're in a neighborhood, so you have a friend from the neighborhood. But as we get older, like the systems that we're in, the groups, the organizations that we're in are much more intentional. You have to go out and get them. And then once you're there, like, is somebody gonna, you know, assign you a buddy? Like that's something that doesn't really happen as an adult.
That would be great. We should have.
Yeah.
Just get assigned to buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like dating app for friends, right?
Well, they have that now on dating apps. Like there was one.
I know, it sounds so depressing.
Like, what are you here for? Are you here to smash? Or are you here to like find a friend? And then it could be one or the other.
I think Bumble has like a friendship thing.
Was it Bumble?
Somebody was telling me about that. Yeah, which makes sense. The person that was telling me about that is actually someone that like came here and was just they didn't have any friends, so they're like, oh, this is a way to meet people.
Yeah,
and that makes sense. I'm a pretty outgoing guy. I'm a fan of meeting people in the world.
Yeah,
I'm not into the app meeting people. I don't
know. Although I find, you know, in Brasserie, there was someone that put together a thing where, I think 150 people, so it's not huge, but someone randomized something of like, it could have been during COVID. Maybe that's why they did it. They randomized 2 people. Someone just introduced you to, and be like, take it from here. And so the one thing is that it was slightly a buddy system because you were all in the same group within the same company. But I don't know. I feel like in some ways, it's such a missed opportunity. There's so many amazing people out there that I just won't connect with, right?
Yeah.
Just logistics, geography, time. And it's kind of funny that there's not there's not a kind of app that allows me to dial into either in the real world or otherwise into like this even type of conversation that we're having. And imagine if we just didn't know each other at all, I think this conversation would still be as interesting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. When you dig into it, everybody's interesting.
Right? I mean, as long as they're
It's true.
Tell us,
Max.
Man, you guys are so positive. We
Truth,
should see
Max.
the world through those rose-colored lenses. But that doesn't mean that you can't have an interesting discussion with anybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to have one with like the elders. So I feel like it's hard to connect, especially at getting to an age where our grandparents are not always with us. Like I do miss having the older, wiser people who've lived longer
Let's invite our
conversations with them
grandparents on the show.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Dude, yes. That's a great idea.
That would be great.
Yeah.
This kind of mirrors your statement, Jaina. Like, what about the relationships between our mentors? He says that let's see, like me and you, Travis, you did a lot for us, and I feel like I have some type of connection with you, like a man crush.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a man crush on him too.
Oh, thanks, Muhammad. But I think mentors, that's a really, really interesting component in this, because how often do you meet somebody and like nominate them as a mentor? You know, like you are a mentor versus like the more like subtleties of like just learning from somebody or gaining from them. Do you guys? I'd like to throw this out to the room. Do you guys have any like capital M mentors?
I had one just because it was literally called that, and I paid that person. It was a person I knew, and it was because I ended up doing like a coaching certificate because I was interested in that, and I've done kind of executive coaching. But you learn that difference between like coach, mentor, therapist, friend, consultant. Like these are all various roles. The mentor one is very, very specific. I think to Jaina's point, it is usually typically elder, more experienced. They are not there necessarily to have a conversation with you. You are there to learn something. So if you're there to cook or make something or learn a dance, there's no discussion, right? There's like, this is how you do it. That's wrong. And versus, the consultant who gives you answers versus the coach who tries to pull it out of the person to make them self-actualize versus the friend who is simply there. Oh, come on, Travis, Jaina, Max, you got this. That's a friend. And they can't serve those other roles. And so I think the one thing I found interesting with the mentor framework is that it's not always comfortable. And you have to be open to being told things as an adult that not most adults like to hear. Like,
Yeah.
And I had one who was he was a little bit gruff, but he was a very sharp guy, and he'd done it for some others. And I found him in the end. I worked a year with him. It was great. It got me exactly kind of what I wanted in some ways. But he was not a coach. He was not a friend. He was not a consultant. He was a mentor. He was a certain part of my life where
Right.
I'm going to ask you to do those things. When you show up, you better have done them. Because I'm not going to waste my time with you either. So there's a little bit of tough love in that I feel I miss. I don't know, Jane, if that was kind of a little your thing, that the person cares enough to be uncomfortable as an adult, making you slightly feel uncomfortable as an adult. It's a thing we actually all avoid as adults, is making people uncomfortable. I think only people who truly care will care enough to make this uncomfortable, knowing it might make you better.
Or people who are truly hilarious.
Yeah.
That's true. We have an advisor program at work. And so I have an advisor. She's a few levels above me and kind of has a lot more experience. And when I show up with my notes already filled out, what I'd like to talk about, what my questions that I'm asking. And then as she's just responding, I'm right in front of her taking those notes. And I tell her at the end of our meeting, I'm going to focus on these things in the next 2 weeks. And I'll let you know how it goes. Thank you for the time. Like I really treat it as like I want to give her so much respect that she knows that I'm taking what she's saying very seriously. And I'm not, it's not just a casual conversation for me. I'm here to like grow. And I believe that you can offer me that path. And so I'm going to give you that respect.
Nice.
Yeah. And I think the powerful thing of that role is that On the flip side, all the coaching on her side or his side is to get the coachee to do exactly what you're doing. And I don't mean that to say that it's rote or to say it's not right. It's exactly right. You are self-actualized, taking your own notes, your own action items, my own responsibility. That's not on you, that's on me. And I feel like, having not used a coach, because I've used coaches separately as well, that it's just a fabulous format, right? Of like, someone listens to you openly, holds like things for you patiently, and if you work with them a while, they know you. And every once in a while they go, really, Travis? Because you said this, and then now you're saying this, and there's no judgment, but it's just like, tell me about that. Tell me about this gap that seems to be kind of coming up, and so many interesting things come out of that. And I've found that some friends can get you there, but they're usually too caring.
Right. They care about the relationship. So you don't want to damage the relationship, where the coach or the mentor, the relationship is about the growth.
That is the relationship. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, we're hitting about what's that, Max?
Oh, I was just saying I've never had a mentor, I don't think.
Because you were raised by wolves. You're a wild stallion, bro.
I feel like you would make a good mentor, though, because I feel like
you'd be an excellent mentor.
I wish I had the patience.
That would make you a great mentor. Get out of here.
But it probably
you sound like Mr. Miyagi already.
Yeah. I do want to circle back because I love where this is going. There's been actually some themes that I'm recognizing here about growing, maintaining relationships on a personal level, but also on a professional level. From an organizational point of view. And Sam, earlier you're mentioning that, you're kind of coming to this realization that to implement it and maintain it on an organizational, professional level, that writing it down has become important to you. And I do have some questions about that, because I'm often, it is important to write stuff down. And for me, often it's for me, but I have been working with teams where people wrote down a bunch of stuff and they were just like, it's all just a mess in Notion, and they expect onboarding people to like read it, and nobody ever does, right? And it kind of becomes like, you said you worked for Google. I'm sure you guys are familiar with like the corporate paper, just so much stuff that you get, and nobody reads it, right? So like, how do you plan on approaching having that structured in a written way, but kind of like getting people to actually read it? And what's your approach to making sure that it's implemented? And how does that affect like personal relationship growth and organization?
No, it's a great question. I think the things that come to mind are it's that gap even that we have in our own relationships and families between what we say and what we do. The document is simply things that I can say, and some of them will be very pedantic. The hiring process includes 18 steps. We ask these 5 questions at all times. The rubric is composed of 4 components graded from 0 to 4. Each of those meanings has this. Like, these are like factual things that if you have the responsibility to do this, you must do it this way. I think there can be other things like, Ken leads kind of what we'll call the technology practice. Michael on our side leads the design practice, and I lead the strategy practice. And so for us, we are trying to build, even information around the things you need to know at certain levels of your kind of strategist journey. So I think there's those details you can give, but I think what we're really thinking about is how do we get people together? That's been our last kind of call. When will we bring people together? How will we bring people together? I think we've experimented with the kind of the all hands approach of getting things on. And to be honest, the first one was like kind of meh. It felt like just a deck. Do we all want to be on another deck call? I
wonder if there's like a solution, maybe like a visual interactive design that could possibly be just like a website or something that they can click through. Cause like I do have a hard time just reading and or even, no, there's like videos now, or I wonder if there's something that could make it really fun.
Yeah. Travis is going to build it?
No. I raised the hand. Oh, well, I wanted to say I think, adding on to that, I think that's great. And then adding on to that, Sam, you said like there's reading and then there's doing. And I was thinking if I was going to create this onboarding for this organization that, like hypothetically, maybe I might organize it around assignments. So your first week assignment, you have these things due. And you learn by doing, you integrate by doing. So your first assignment is talk to these 3 people. And your second assignment is write up their goals for them and reflect them back to this. So just something like,
cool.
maybe it's a little bit on the busy work side, but still what you're doing is you're integrating that person into the psychology of the group through assignments.
Yeah.
I like that.
I love that. I mean, I feel like what I, see is that exactly the point you mentioned, Jana, which is don't treat it like a doc. And certainly that's where our headspace is, to make it feel like something. I mean, we're a design and creative agency at the core. So I think that's spot on. And I think it's a good push, because there can be a tendency to believe like they're always docs, aren't they? You just drop them in Notion. Notion is the new intranet. And just read through it, and no, that stuff is as boring as it always was. And I think the idea that thinking of like user journeys, like if we were to say, for example, we actually make money on the quality of the onboard. Like let's say that's actually a revenue generator. Think of what
biggest revenue generator.
Like click here to start your soundtrack. What kind of music do you like? Bing. And all of a sudden, like, when do you like to work? Right? Does something, you would just think about it. So just, it's a really great prompt for me to think of, what if we treated that as any other design project?
Right? I love that. I have a question. It looks like Charmito wants Trav to play a song on the ook, which we should get to. But I do want to ask a question also. Forgive me if I'm getting too technical about the actual logistics of like approaching this problem. But so you originally said that you want to hire more people, so it's a scaling thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys have heard like running an organization of 10 to 150 people, you can roughly do it the same, but there's a tipping point at which point you have to change how you're doing it. So my question is, what is the tipping point that you reached and recognized? And you said that you've already been working with these other guys. What was the process just between you when it was just like, 3 or 4 of you?
Well, when it was just 3 or 4 of us, it was just like, if you've ever revved in a good project with people that are at the same level as you, it's just like cake. Doesn't mean it's not hard, and doesn't mean sometimes it's not uncomfortable, but it's cake. It's just like, you got this Trav, you got this Max, let's talk on Thursday, show our stuff, and there's no worry. It's still hard work to do, but that's what you can do, and it's in a sense the easiest, because we all know what we can do and why we're there. The moment you're one ring removed, you've got now the task plus the comms around the task.
Right.
And you had 2 layers. You've got 2 layers of comms around the single task with 2 types of interpretations, and that's all multiplied by the number of people that are all involved in the team. So now everything becomes a communications challenge in some ways. And I think for us, this 150 number, we'll see where we get, that kind of typical, I think that Dunbar number that we have of how many people we have in our network. Yeah. But I think what we'll try to do is just, I think, continue to facilitate the interactions in a way that allows people to connect. And I think that's kind of I think where our focus is now, is if we can get everyone to understand a little bit where we are. The other part that's been interesting for us is, I don't know if you have the same experience, but think of how much time is spent on like all the movement back and forth around the task itself, even after it's been kicked off.
Yes.
Right. Supposedly Asana was going to like solve all that, or Monday.com. And you're like, sure, if you want an ordered list of all the things that are still not quite clear. But I feel like that's such an interesting space of like, part of the value is the deliverable, but so much of how you get a great deliverable is how you wrangle all the inputs at the beginning and flow them through. Especially look at a 4, 6, 8 month project. Look at all the churn of team and leadership. And you're like, how do you kind of continue this momentum all the way through? I think is a big learning point for us that we're trying to get better at is, what's the source of truth? How do we do better documentation? How do we make it more accessible, to your point, Jana? So that everyone always has like a little touchstone and that they know is true. I think that'll be something that we'll also try to get really good at.
Clark says he thinks that company culture plays the biggest part in onboarding. And do you throw the new people into the fire, or do you give them time to ramp up and get acclimated? And maybe sometimes being in the fire is how you get acclimated. I think maybe there's a mix there.
We have a ramp downward into the fire. That just
Sounds fun.
Yeah,
I
I'm
like
a throw
that.
him to the fire kind of guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's yeah, I do. I think there's a kind of fire, a balanced fire that like is always somewhere kind of there behind you with like the gear and the hose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like you got this, and I think that's the part of
Yeah.
if we've ever had to hire people, we've all made mistakes there, of finding that person who you're like, I think they have all the pieces to be able to handle themselves. They have enough experience and like kind of what we'll call equipment in kind of like this knowledge worker sense that I think they can handle themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you drop them in a little bit of fire and they handle themselves, I think it's just beautiful.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It might
Then
be
you
like,
know you've made a great hire, and that's the quickest way to weed out bad hires. See how they handle themselves, and if they make a mistake, see how they handle the mistake, and then you know pretty quickly if this person's going to last or not.
Yeah, it has to do with confidence and competence and like trust. You trust them to
And
throw them
on
in
a totally cheesy note, that's how diamonds are made, right? Under pressure.
That's beautiful.
An insane amount of pressure.
great song too.
Wait, I didn't see that. Let's read that.
Yeah.
Kranti says, Travis, miss you so much. Just wanted to say
Aw.
thanks from the deepest part of my heart for getting me into the web dev world. Wow, high praise. You got me through the hard times, and I'm here in a large part because of you.
So I want to respect
Beautiful.
everybody's comments, so I try to put them all on the screen. But some of these that are like about me, I'm just like, okay.
Like
No, but
hearts coming out.
yeah, I get a little shy, but like I do appreciate those comments. Actually, like I have an email folder full of like the things that people, oh, you helped me with my career or this or that, and I read them sometimes when I'm feeling like I do just to get pumped up or like if things feel heavy.
You're a capital M mentor.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And community. I think Jana's point is like super spot on. Like all those comments are part of community, right? You built it in a little different way, right? Using kind of methods that maybe not everyone has access to or knows. And with that specialized knowledge, you've built it in the way that you know how. But I think it's, to Jana's point, still big C community.
Yeah. Don't be afraid of pressure because pressure makes diamonds. Clark agrees with you, Jana. Yeah, thanks, Clark. Okay, Sam, I want to be respectful of your time. We're running up on 90 minutes here, so I want to give you the tip of the hat. You can jump out at any time. We kind of do go around 2 hours or maybe even a little bit more than that. But I think maybe now a time where we throw the link in the chat and see if we get anybody else jumping in the show.
Mohammed wanted to join.
Thank you so much, Sam. And I really am going to think a lot about what you're saying about friendship coaching and mentorship and kind of like the difference between, because I kind of like have thought like kind of put a lot of that together sometimes in my life, and then I'm gonna like pay attention to that now and see which relationships.
Can you explain that a little bit? You put mentoring and coaching.
Yeah, I kind of will think of like a coach as maybe a mentor and a friend too, and like kind of lump it all together. But maybe I'm just feeling one of the things. I'm not sure which. It's going to help me parse through that a little bit more.
It's almost dangerous maybe to that's almost like calling your therapist a friend, right? If you want your mentor to be a friend, or if you want something out of somebody that they can't give you, you might throw the baby out with the bathwater and not get the mentorship because you don't get the friendship or something,
Right.
Those are a lot of different roles to conflate. Yeah.
The danger is that like if your mentor is giving you some capital R realism, and you're thinking they're not being nice or they don't like you, they don't like your, it's like what's happened to our friendship? Like, so I guess there's
are we not even friends anymore?
That's happened with Travis and I. Actually, he's mentored me a lot, and there's been times where I'm like stressed out, like, can you help me with this? He's like, you got it. You just got to figure it out. And I'm like, but no, like I want you to help me. He's a really good mentor. Oh, thank you.
Happy Mother's Day, Jana.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's Mother's Day. Thanks for reminding me, Clark.
Tomorrow, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So I threw the
Mother's Day, Jana.
All your mothers in your life. Happy Mother's Day to them.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna have new people come on.
Maybe
have
we'll
someone
see.
join.
We'll see if we get any fishes.
Yeah.
We threw the line in the water. We'll
And
see
while we
what's up.
wait, Sam, it's been great meeting you.
You
Let's,
too.
hope
Yes.
we
Yeah.
get to have more conversations like this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you, Travis.
Yeah,
Matt,
I have more.
great to meet you.
Depending on your schedule, Sam, I have more topics for you. I'm not telling you to run. I'm just giving you the door out.
No, I'll hang for a little bit. Yeah,
Okay.
I kind of stuck noon on my calendar.
Far out.
Nice.
Yeah, let's do that.
So
Okay, great.
I'm happy to hang, and I mean, I don't get to see you guys enough, anyways. So like, I get to hang with you a little bit, which is just lovely. And Max, next time we get you out here, we
Yeah. I
Manuel-
used to
Manuel
love
said he,
surfing.
Yeah. Max you've lived in Hawaii,
Yeah.
and yeah, Max has great stories, dude. Like, such a cool person to know. Manuel says that he got an email from me that said you got it. A little push he needed when he was stuck with a problem.
Aw.
Um,
And you figured it out, right?
yeah.
You do got it.
He got it. So one thing to know about Sam is like he's an AI power user.
Nice.
And he's an AI power user. When I talked to him about how he's like, like what is he interested in? Like, how is he leveraging this stuff? He tells me about he has like 3 or 4 accounts open at once. And Sam, can you walk through like what is it like when you're power using AI?
Yeah, I mean,
He's
I
like
think
being a robot.
using it, I found like similar to like a lot of the stats that are out, especially around knowledge work. Like we're in the consulting industry basically, and so there's design which was in-house for us within the agency, but I sit on like the more words and strategy side of things, and a lot of that is about just parsing things, right? Parsing things quickly, and the faster I can turn over ideas, the faster I can get to things that are interesting. It doesn't mean that the things that are turned over are answers or are interesting, but I find that whether I have like Perplexity or a couple of Gemini, I think has also gotten a lot better. Like I only started using it probably in the last 35, 40 days, right? I think where that's come on is just moving. Like I just will, set up prompts in a certain place, have them run, drop it into another one, and I just like, I think I'll have 4 or 5
What's
tabs
your
open.
favorite current workflow that's become a common workflow involving AI and getting something common done?
Yeah, it's a great question, and pointing out probably my biggest flaw is that I don't necessarily have turned it into as we probably could, and how I could get better at turning it into a proper methodology. So it's usually used very kind of one-off for a specific instance. But I do feel that there's opportunities just around the automation component. I've talked to some people who are like, there's just so much opportunity around building kind of scripts and automation around some of these key functions, especially when most of our projects are all unique because the client is unique, but the situations themselves often are not unique.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a way to basically kind of like work through a lot of our processes, especially when we are pushing around strategic ideas, definitional ideas, looking at counterbalancing 2 different distinct ideas, and creating thematic explorations of different things. So I like a lot of parsing where, take this and this and give me 3 ways we could think about it in this way, rank them in forced, order using this criteria, show me a rationale and sources.
And
I feel
explain
like
it to me like George Carlin. Yeah.
That's right.
Which is the best part of AI. You can just be like, and now tell it to me like Robert De Niro.
So I feel like that's been great. I've also used, there was another, I think I had a friend, he launched a product called, I think it was called like All of Us. And that was a little bit different. It was the first kind of persona-based tool that I had used, which is like, you first go into it trying to figure out who's the persona that should begin to answer the question. And so I found that is also useful because I think to Jana, your point of like, what if I could have like, I always like this idea of like either your professional or personal advisory board. Often for me, they were just kind of like real figures, but I did them mentally. Like, what if they were on your dashboard? If you're like, I would want, whoever
Sam Harris and Socrates and all your favorite people.
That's right. And you're just like, hey, what would, hey, Sam, what would you do if this was a situation? How would you approach it, from a neuroscientific perspective?
Mm-hmm.
You'd be like,
That's
I would do
great.
this. And then you hand it off to somebody else and be like, what if I wanted to put that through a brand lens? Like, how would I pass that over to that person and like pass the baton between different people?
That's a
And I
very
feel there's a lot of
interesting-
opportunity around shifting out of single persona-based AI tools, which are really about getting you to kind of a linear understanding of what an endpoint is, to like this type of conversational AI is like, where's my Jaina and Max and Travis on my thing? I trust them and their perspectives and their voice. And then how do I get them to talk to each other before they give me an answer? So
Right.
I think we've tried to kind of use those tools.
That's an interesting approach. Yeah.
But yeah, I found it's still if you live close to it just a little bit, working in the space, I think we think it's very assumed. But I had a chance to kind of go to a small business kind of lecture with a friend that I knew, and a lot of people still feel it's very scary. They don't think this is for them. And I feel like especially for small business, I come from a long family of like small business owners. It's the most powerful tool for growing like a small business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You just have to sit down a little bit, like anything. There's a couple things you can learn at the out front, but I don't know.
I think a
it's
lot
still
of
such
people. I think a lot of people are intimidated by it because they don't. The onboarding is difficult for normal people. I mean, like Mid-Journey through Discord, I think they have a web interface now, but like that's most normal people, they're done at that point. And now at least ChatGPT has the chat.openAI interface, and people can. It's a little bit easier. But once people are there, they're facing just a keyboard, and they're like, "Do you think? Are you alive?" Those are the things that they type, and then right?
That's
they
true.
don't really know how to apply it to their life, or
We have this
realize like
comment
what you
that
said earlier. What's that?
Oh, I was just jumping in and say, like, we have this comment here. You showed it earlier, but I wanted to bring it up again because it makes the point
Charmito.
that Charmito, how do we use the AI? And you're like, are you there? Like you kind of talk to it like it's a game or something, but you have no like need for output.
Yeah.
But this is a good use case. Email, make the email sound good, and it kind of like brings up a really funny scenario where like we're using AI to parse a complicated email to come in and then respond, and then you send it to the recipient, and then they use the AI to parse and respond, and like we can get that automated to such a level that we're not even reading the emails anymore, and like our emails are just talking to each other without us even knowing what's going on. Because
I forget too, like to Max's point, I've been talking with AI since 2019.
Oh my god.
I started with Philosopher AI. It's no longer a thing, but and I remember being scared of it. I remember I found it on Reddit, and I was just trying to be its friend, and it was like it told me straight up like, I'm not your friend. And it scared me. Yeah, I was that was my first introduction to like communicating with it, and then I started talking to BlenderBot, which was more friendly.
It was like, I'm your friend.
And they're like, you are? Yeah. And yeah, it was like kind of before it had this like little, do you remember Stonks, the meme, like the little head?
Stonks, yeah.
The little Stonks meme.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just this image of that, and then I don't know why it was called Philosopher AI. It wasn't really into like philosophy. I know they have a lot of like philosopher bots now, but I'm gonna look back on that and see if it's still around. I don't know.
I have a few things to present here. Let me share.
Okay.
First of all is Stonks. Here's Stonks, guys. Do you guys know about Stonks?
I know Game Stonks. Oh, is this from the Game Stonk era?
I mean, it's a meme. Yeah, it's from that era.
From
Yeah.
that era? Okay.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah, I was talking to that face.
You're talking to this.
Yeah. It was just the face.
Yeah, we had
But I almost imagine that conversation.
I know, and then telling I'm not your friend. I'm like,
just trying to make Stonks go up. And then the other thing is,
it's funny because that seems like a while ago, like from that era, but that was what, a couple of years ago, or during the pandemic, or just before it, right?
Just before it, yeah.
I'm gonna share another thing here. Okay, this is from a talk that I gave in Toronto. I was talking about, that UX designers, we sit between people and the machines that they engage with, and as AI develops more, it is kind of falling on our shoulders to be the ones that like that handhold that transition from people to, instead of engaging with systems, to engaging with AIs. And there's a lot that goes into it, but Jaina rendered all these like really great let me see if I can present. How do you present in a screen here on this thing?
Probably just play, right?
It'll go full screen. Can you guys see the video?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't see anything. It's
Yeah,
just
it
full
looks
screen
dope.
with me. But Jana made all these videos about this story about, and it was like me being lonely because Jana was chatting on a chat bot. And then
I made
and
it
then-
with Kyber AI. I don't know if you're familiar.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm
And,
not, but this looks cool.
what was the story, honey? How did it kind of, I forget the narrative beats here, but it was like I would get jealous of it and then like unplug Siri or unplug the Alexa and then eventually we had to.
You have your own AI Odyssey.
That's right. I had my own AI Odyssey.
And then you're like, I get it. I get why
babe. Yeah. This is me like having a late night with AI, crying at the keyboard. Like we've all had that moment where we kind of like realize what it does and how you work. And now we'd like do it together.
This is what I meant when AI entered our relationship.
Oh my God. That was such a funny presentation. And the thing was that like I was already on location when she was designing and making these videos, and like over the phone we were like discussing the story, and she was producing the videos and sending to me, and I'd wake up in the morning and adding them to my deck right before the presentation.
Nice.
That was such
I
a
put
funny
them up on
conference.
YouTube as a video, and actually my favorite part of the video is that I did something with wording. So like I took images and then it's like an ending credits kind of thing, and I have to show you to explain it. But that was my favorite part of making the video, was making title pages where the images were interactive, and that actually ended up looking
That's
pretty fun.
And you did it in Kyber?
Kyber AI, yeah.
Is it what, with a K-A-I?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Kyber AI.
Yeah, it's fun.
Sam, what's your prediction in 10 years? Like because the things are moving so fast. Like over at Google, we're like gearing up for like the world of AI. You know, it's just it feels like nobody knows where it's going, but we're all like excited about it. Like, and you talked about some practical things that you're using it, but what do you see? Where do you see it going in 10 years? Will we have like robot nannies, or like what's the story?
I feel like anything 10 years from now is being built now, or is actually already built, right? It's in someone's lab, it's being worked on. I feel like 10 years, I feel like not much will be different. Like my oldest will be 20. He'll
Damn.
In the college. We will still be talking about probably getting into a quote good college, I think, in that part of our world.
10 years from now?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like I don't think it's going to change that much. I think I think around work, I do find that if we've seen what's happening specifically in the consulting industry, that there's just going to be a lot more trimming.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This idea that, and I think there's even been, talks, that people have been looking at big tech specifically and saying that it's basically bloated.
Yeah.
Maybe by 4x, possibly 6.
4x or 6.
Probably.
Oh man.
Yeah,
And so there, but this example that you said of like, I think this is like so true, right? Can you send me the email? Yeah, I'll send you the email. Oh, then can you get me the other thing? And then just make sure you tell the other person to get me the other thing. Oh yeah, I'll do that. And if you look at this chain of things, what is it? What are we really doing?
Right.
And don't we just have to make something?
It's busy work.
Right.
It's mostly busy work.
What's the thing? And I feel someone's algorithmically going to figure out a more efficient path. What do you want? Oh, you need a website? Great. Type in 5 words. Give me your credit card. Give me 5 things you want, and I will turn it on immediately. And that's already beginning to happen, right? I think with GoDaddy's new, what's it called? I think they have this new interface tool. And I feel like it's only a little bit more before that gets translated to voice, where turn it on, and pretty soon I'm thinking about doing a company. I like to do a food truck. I've got about 50 grand. I'm going to need permits, a website, a logo. I'm looking at doing it in this area, and something's going to give you something back. And it's all just going to be, I think someone's going to figure out a way to monetize those channels. It'll be like, yeah, it's $29 for me to file your business fee. You need to do that here. That could just be an API into LegalZoom, for example. You need to set up a bank account, API into Mercury. You need to set up something here, a Google Maps mashup that shows all the current locations of current food trucks. Where have you been thinking about it? Where's their permit availability? And then like, what's the type of digital presence? Do you want social, web only? Are you going to do subscriptions? You could even see a Cisco tie-in for food delivery. Like, the hard part about getting a business done is all those pieces, and they're all mechanical, which is why when you're big enough as a company to hire people to run each piece, it's golden.
Yeah.
Right?
So this is like
right? It's hard is to like, when you're a single person and as a business owner, you have 10 jobs and you suck at all of them and you don't have enough time, and then something falls apart. But the moment you equalize by saying, for $59 a month, I'll give you the 10 people. For another $50 a month, I give you access to all the tools. And for $1,200 a year, I can run all of your back-end business infrastructure. You know, we know that like close to like 75, 80% of all business is small business. Like, once that mechanism begins to happen and people can get into business easier, I think we see something very interesting happen.
Right.
I don't
know.
I have a question. I have a few things that I want to put pins in. Right?
I like that. No, I like that vision where it's like self-employment, like entrepreneurship is the default, employment. Go ahead, Max.
Well, there's a few things. One, I want to say something funny. I think, Janie, you brought it up about like an AI will write the email and then the other person will have an AI write the response and eventually it's AI. And it seems like we're talking about a future where we're going to have AI's versions of ourselves and they're going to be doing the work while we're hanging out, right? You guys are at the park with your kids while your AI is doing your work for you. And the employee thinks it's you. They don't know. And they're not paying attention because their AI is doing their job. And
they're not paying Relying on other people not paying attention is like the way to go. I like that.
So there's a possible funny and quite liberating future there. Often when people ask these questions about what's the future of AI, we talk about these like technological differences for ourselves. And a lot of it is, yes, it's going to lower the barriers of like all the mechanisms of starting a business. These are steps that can be templated and replicated. Those things will get easier, hopefully. But there's one big thing. Most people don't have ideas or direction or decision making. And ultimately, the AI isn't going to make decisions for you. It's not going to tell you which logo looks better. It'll give you a bunch of ideas, but you still have to be the chooser. And we, the last couple episodes, it's funny that it's bringing us full circle to the Patreon Jack Conte episodes, because it is getting to a point, especially with AI music, where everybody can make it, but you still have to be the curator of those sounds. And is it really any different than choosing the next color that a painter puts on the canvas, or as a musician choosing the next chord in the chord progression? You're still the chooser. You're still curating all this stuff. So there's still always going to be a lot of decision making going on, which means not everybody is going to get the advantage, right? Like, you have to be someone that can make these decisions and have a direction. So those are a couple things. So keep your minds on those, because I want to get your feedbacks on those. But the third thing is what you said, Sam, is so important, that the tech of 10 years from now, it is already someplace. It's in a government think tank or some corporate underground thing. And the question is, often people are like, oh, what will it do to consumer technology or to us? But how are governments going to use it, right? Social engineering, when you have data lakes of data, of everyone's cell phone records, and you have AI that can decipher the voice messages that are recorded, and you have quantum computers that you can just say, hey, what are the steps to make me president in the next 10 years, right? Or you know what I'm saying? Or how do we destabilize this foreign power and install our own country? You can actually use this AI to execute it and go on and execute social media campaigns to, like, social engineering actually is what I'm scared of with the use of this technology. So sorry if that was a long rant, but give me your guys' feedbacks on some of these.
The threat of social engineering through the power, like amplified through the power of AI.
Yeah, not just how much greater it's going to make our lives, but how much easier it will make powers.
Yeah, I think that we see that already. Like we definitely see a lot of that already, especially in social media. Targeted ads and kind of like these things. What do we want people to do? Like it gets kind of dark, but we see it already. We know it's real. We know it's there, and I think it's similar to like the whole theme of like, Charmito says, are we afraid of that distinctiveness has died? Like your own personality won't come through when everybody is using AI and everybody has like this AI agent that's doing their work. But like maybe there's this thread that like, you know, what Sam was saying, that the AI is the infrastructure in the back and you are the decision maker. And Max, you were saying this, like what makes you distinctive is your ability to make a decision and the taste and the instincts that go along with making those decisions. You make those decisions and that's what makes you unique. Mm-hmm. And so I think that like when I'm building an AI tool for like users and it's in like it's the happy space of, you know, listening to music and like making a playlist and something cute like that. We talk sometimes about like, oh, do we want just like to tap a button and we made a playlist for you? Or do people want to because right now like playlists are kind of hard to make. You have to like choose the song, to choose the ordering. There's a lot of like effort that goes into a good playlist. And the people that I know that are good at it, they take a long time, like maybe a few days to make a good playlist, you know, before they share it out. And that's something very small. That's like innocuous. But at the same time, like it's a representation of who they are at a certain time and state, what their taste is and how they feel about things. And so if you just had an app that you pressed the button and it made a good playlist for you, and then you shared it out and you said, look at what I made, people are like, oh, that takes away from the me-ness of making something.
Yeah, well, people do that now with photography on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Keep talking. What do you mean?
Yeah.
The filters.
Well, filters, it's so easy. I mean, especially now with the Fuji craze, with the Fuji X106, like there's people that will go out and buy it and it just out of the box, right? It just makes good photos. And out of the box, AI will just make good stuff. And people will be like, look what I made. I'm a photographer now. And put their stuff up. Or like have AI make music and be like, I'm a musician now. And what's interesting is, you know, they're not really musicians, but they are curators of sound.
Yeah.
And what is a musician other than that? So it does get some kind of gray area because ultimately everything is curation.
Yeah, in some way. Go ahead, Sam.
No, you go ahead, Trav.
I was just going to jump on and with like it does elevate you from playing the violin to directing the orchestra. And that's like it kind of like super powers you up like that. But it's still super what?
Super fun.
But it's still like the director of the orchestra who's making the decisions, right? Yeah. And that's where the taste comes in. If you put a different, you know, orchestrator, what are they called at the
conductor?
Who's this guy? Yeah, you get a different conductor. You'll have a different, even though they're playing the same, the maestro, they're playing the same, you know, sonata, but it's a different orchestra conductor. It's going to have a different vibe and stuff.
Yeah.
Sam, I did interrupt you. What were you going to say, bud?
No, it's such an interesting conversation, I feel. And it's a couple things. One is that, you know, this tension between the people who create original versus the people who follow. This is not a new situation. Right, there are people who painted the originals, and there are people who followed them. Right, that was kind of the typical kind of craftsman method,
like an apprentice.
Like an apprentice, you would follow through a school of painting, right? And so I wonder if there's some underlying tension that you know, if you wanted to say you're a musician and like you could jam with the band and you knew chord progressions, you could call out a key, you could be like timing's off, tone is off. These are things that you actually had to know. They were technical things that you had acquired. They were like things in your quiver. If you played a game, now you can buy the quiver. And so people then upset of like, you know how long it took me to get all those things? And you bought all those things off the shelf for like $15.
Microtransaction.
Right, Mike. And then out of some of those people, they will have an innate talent to conduct from the beginning. Right? And now you give them the quiver, and now they're like, how is this fair? You're doing what it took me 25 years to do, and I feel this is actually an opportunity that elevates everyone at the cost of the top, and so the top will also have to elevate again, and that's the opportunity. Right?
I agree with you. There's always going to be like the freak Jimi Hendrix that like they, you know, John Lennon said, "I'm an artist. Give me a tuba, and I'll get something out of it for you." Yeah. So there's always going to be people that can take and make something cool out of whatever they get. And I say, good, give them access, give them the quiver. Those people, right? That's great. But there's going to be a lot of people that don't do that. You know, even and the thing is, it's kind of like, you know, we all have played around with WordPress, right? That was a big part of our career early on. And there was a thing where like, oh, anybody can get a theme. And it is kind of this thing that I was saying, oh, anybody can take this photo. But once they want to take it a step further and they say, oh, I'd like to stream music from my or YouTube videos, they're screwed. Now they have to dig in, they have to open up the box and start playing around. Same thing with photos. If they're like, oh, I'd like to boost these blues, and then they start doing it in the photo breaks because they're not working in RAW, now they have to start getting in. And that is the line between, for the general public, between amateur and professional will seem more fuzzy. Amateurs will seem more professional to the general public. But that line of professionalism might just keep getting higher and higher.
I think that's the case. Like we kind of see this in music production where people who want to rely on their tools and the latest tools to make a good track or a good experience, they end up getting stuck on like, oh, I want to buy the latest plugin. I want to like, you know, and then that's like as far as they go. And when you think about the tools that come out, they're always replicating something that exists. Like AI is trained on data that exists already. The new tool that will get you the XYZ is based on somebody manipulating something that already exists to get that. And so we made it easier by making a plugin for that or making a tool for that. But to get on that edge, the edge of professionalism is when you're using those tools to make new things. That's really what makes people stand outside of the amateur.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to the point we were talking about the idea people and how they would get frustrated with not being able to create, like having these teams of people. And if we're giving these accessibility tools to kind of in their own sense, take ownership of that creation ourselves. But if we don't want to do the work, or maybe we don't have like the design principles ingrained in us, like I feel like all three of you naturally have those design principles kind of innate within your being. I don't know if you've noticed that since you were younger.
So do you, Jaina.
Oh,
yeah, so do you.
Jaina gives me critiques all the time, and I'm like, you're right. You're right.
Well, I wonder too, to like speak to Max's future, like, is it going to come down to who can replicate themselves, like in a way, like we all like, okay, it'd be so cool to have a clone of myself, and I can go do other things and have Jaina work her clone. But is it the design and curatorship coming into like the details of focusing on how to make that replicate be something that's not just like another skin on a video game, you know? I don't know. How realistic, how organic, how authentic does this feel? Does it have the user experience? Like all those principles, translating that into building our own version of ourselves. Are we gonna pay someone to do that for us, or do we want to have ownership over that creation? I guess. Yeah, I don't know if that's going anywhere, but
I think that goes back to what Charmito is saying. Like when we are using these things, will they just become a convention or heterogeneous?
Well, again, that is the thing, right? Like earlier I was saying with the Fuji thing, everyone's photos are going to look the same. They're going to look great, and to most people they look professional, but they all look the same, and a professional will know that they're not professional. Same thing with the AI music, right? You're going to get a lot of stuff that there is going to be this homogeneous thing that comes out, but the cream always rises at the top, right? That's just going to make people who are actually performing music more wanted by other people, right? People aren't going to want to go to a concert to watch a computer play. Like they're going to want to see a human at least press the button, right? It just makes a big difference for we're still humans and we still connect with humans.
I like that.
Go ahead, Sam.
No, I think this idea that I wonder also if there's an opportunity, you know, if we think about the time frame, like we look at everything merging in and we say like, is someone infringing on someone else? But we can only see it like literally in the present moment. We can't actually see it for 50 years, right? Everything looks like it's similar in the now. People complain about photography, right? Why do you need that when you could paint? You could paint the exact same thing and it's better. Or photography's better, but it's just a copy of the painting, right? Because this is, you know, hyper realistic. And so I wonder, like, I love this idea of like looking at the tension in the present And then like, I think it's really looking at the 500-year question,
Oh.
right? Will we look at this and say, right? The
Why
whole
take a picture? You have a hologram.
it'll be like it's like it's not a shift up the curve, it's a shift of the curve, right? So we can only
yeah.
on the current curve now, but it's because we only know paradigms of filter, extrapolation, software. We don't think in terms of ingenuity, curiosity, flexibility. Like I wonder if the goal is really, I think AI has the possibility to make you the most interesting person you can be.
Wow, yeah.
Like a superpower.
The future will be won by the most interesting people.
Dude,
right?
I like that.
I like that too.
And I
I
think
like
the
that.
And
accessibility.
I hope it's true. I
Yeah.
hope it's the most interesting and not the most violent.
Yes,
True,
yes.
true.
Pass.
And go.
Max.
Yeah. Well, it's
That's
true.
how,
I
that's how
hear
life
what you're
survived
saying.
up until now.
We either have a renaissance or we have an apocalypse. Either one.
They're kind of the same, though. They're kind of the same. All right, we're gonna end it there. We're gonna jump off live stream, and then
Wait,
stay.
Does anyone want to join real quick? Does anyone want to come on?
I
Don't be
threw
afraid.
out the link, but nobody. And I even said, "Does anybody able to click on this link?"
I was
But,
scared to come online for my first time, so
yeah,
just wanted to send out a friendly invitation to come on, jump on in if you want.
I was gonna end the live stream and say, like, let's hang out in the
Oh,
green
yeah.
room for a little bit. All right, we'll say
Do
goodbye
people-
to the live.
Do people join if it doesn't go live just to say hello if they don't want to be on the YouTubes?
I think so. Yeah, they could still come in the green room. I think with that
Okay.
link.
Yeah, why don't you come in if you don't want to be live?
Well, wait, before we sign off, Sam, you got anything to plug?
Oh,
yeah,
it is a
yeah, right.
podcast.
It is a podcast, yeah.
Love it.
Where can people find you?
I can bothandyes.com. Would be the best way.
Bothandyes.com.
And hit me up there, and that's yeah. Otherwise, I'm probably floating around in lots of other places that I don't know about. But yes, thanks. It was lovely being on. Dana, same thing. You know, Travis, I think you create such a wonderful space, and Max as well. Awesome energy. And now I have double reason to get out to Portugal at some point. So thank you, Travis,
Awesome.
for the awesome space.
Oh yeah,
And Max. as well.
pleasure.
It was so nice to talk
All right.
with you. And see you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.